All right, so hi guys. This is our interview segment, and I want to introduce Elizabeth Harding Weinstein, who is a member. Could we say you're a member of the Greenwich Patriots?
Yes.
And but prior to that, she's been certainly, shall we say, involved with the legal system, and I believe that would be an understatement. Yes.
Yeah, I've been involuntarily committed to the legal system.
Yeah, that's got a certain twist to it. I like that. So, so I just want to go back to the story I told about the judge who had not worked for 2 years and received $400,000.
Yeah.
Okay, this is an obvious case of where they are treating their own with favoritism. You know what, 2 years, I would say for all intents and purposes, you're protecting one of your own who's breaking the law.
Yes.
Okay? So, I mean, there's always the question, why now? Why do they do it at this point? And I don't have a good answer for that. I can only guess. Maybe some time on something ran out in the statutes. I don't know. But it is, to me, such an illustrative example of how the Connecticut judicial system has serious problems. And that one, believe me, is the least of them. And that's my segue to you.
Okay. So is that a question? Do you have a question for me? My opinion on it is
well,
just that...
I mean, let that be a starting point, and
okay.
then I'm sure you can,
Thank you.
smoothly glide into things you'd like to talk about.
Okay. Well, for those of you who don't know my story, I am a 49-year-old woman who has been trafficked into an illegal guardianship by my domestic violence abuser, as part of a long 21-month history of his use of the courts as an individual tool of his, and as a sword. So this issue, when stories come out about the judiciary being punished, it really is just a fluff piece. So they're sending one of their own to slaughter for what you said, just for the scene of it, so that we all participate in this delusion that we actually have a system of justice. We don't. What we do have is a system, a legal system for coercion, extortion, and trafficking. And that's what our justice system is. And our judges are hardened criminals who commit the most horrific crimes in plain view. I'm talking about kidnapping. I'm talking about murder in some cases. You don't have to go far to look at cases of guardianship where people died in the guardianship and they just burned them and kept their remains in a box in a shed. I mean, if you Google that, you'll be surprised at the number of cases that pop up.
So you've been sort of dragged into this over, what should we say, a 2 or 3 year period?
No, it started May 20th, May 20th of 2020.
Okay.
And by June 5th is when I found out my husband's criminal history and his pedophilia. And by June 5th of 2020, he had used a bogus court order and had the police come to my house, kidnap my children, had me evicted during a time of COVID moratorium on evictions. And I was left homeless. I'm a multimillionaire, but been left homeless, had all my finances cut off, things that should all be illegal. Like I filed for divorce the next day, but he still dissipated all marital and personal assets, even assets in my own name.
This is what lawyers do.
Right, but beyond that, the lawyers can ask the judge for whatever they want, okay? They can ask for whatever they want. It's the judge that gives it. It's the judge that awards these types of crimes, that it's allowing the court to be used as a sword against its own people. So I should never have been, there needs to be some massive sign of clear and convincing evidence of physical harm to somebody in order to have them evicted and taken away from their children. And yet there was none, and he specifically even said, like, there's not even a concern of harm. She's a great mom, she's wonderful. There's just some, something going on in the house and I don't want her around. And they were like, okay, literally, I'll give you the papers, you can read the papers, it's insane. Specifically, I have no concerns of physical harm. And yet our judges are currently using these bogus orders to perpetrate crimes against humanity. And it's in all walks of life. It goes to our masking of children in schools. It goes to these mandates that are being passed that aren't law. And why can't we get relief in them? Because the places that we go to for relief, which are the courts, they themselves are the perpetrators of the crime. So we're going to the Fox and asking them to put the lock back on the hand cage. The judges know that these things are unconstitutional, right? And what they do by not giving relief is they are empowering the militia against their own people, who we refer to as police, right? But they really are militia, to then use these unconstitutional orders as plausible deniability for why they can have aggravated assault and kidnapping against you and falsely imprison you. And that's what this is. We need to start calling it what it is. It isn't a false arrest. It's an aggravated assault and kidnapping, right? You don't have legal... I was put into solitary confinement for not wearing a mask in a public building, okay? That's not against the law. It wasn't against the law. I was following all lawful orders. And for them to have done that is nothing other than aggravated kidnapping by force. And it's aggravated because they have a gun on them. And so until we start calling our criminals, and until we stop honoring these people, right? We treat our judges as though they deserve our honor.
Right.
They
Well,
don't.
all of this leaves us with the question: where do we go? I mean,
Where do
there's
we
no,
go?
you know, there is no recourse because every key aspect of the system, how shall I say it, is against us.
It refers back to the same system, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think the first and foremost thing is these people still care about their reputations. They still want you to call them honorable. They still, this is what, right? They still set up these situations where they are both respectable members of society on the outside, and in these courts where many times they keep the doors closed and you can't get access to transcripts and you can't get the press in there, even though it's supposed to be a free and transparent system, they commit crimes. And so the first step in all of this is to take off the veil, pull back the curtain, and let people know that really what's going on in these systems that we call justice are actually just horrific crimes.
Right.
So
let
what
me.
do we do next? I mean, it's like people called out the lies post 9/11. There's a saying, the dogs bark and the caravan moves on.
True.
That's what's been happening with 9/11 lies. It's what's been happening with COVID
Yes.
lies.
Yes.
So we can call it out, but the dogs can bark and the caravan is going to move on.
Well, I'm just going to offer that we haven't discovered it yet, but I really think there is a strategy.
Yeah.
It's a communication and messaging strategy. It's not at the point where I feel like I've got something that can work. You know, all the parts that are moving and working together. I mean, from what you're saying, great. They like to think they're honorable. The public will remind them they're not. We need to know who they are. Yes, we need to have pictures. It's okay to mock them and ridicule them, call them out. I think that's good. So those are some of the components, but I don't feel like that's enough.
It's not enough. I mean, what's going to
So-
have to happen is we're going to either turn away from the systems that don't serve us. Currently, we participate, we comply with our own abuse. We subscribe to the same systems of abuse, and
Amen
that's
to
what
that.
needs to stop.
Amen
And
to
so
that.
as soon as we stop complying with first we have to acknowledge the problem, then we have to stop complying with the problem, right? We have to turn away from it. And I mean, honestly, this is why revolutions happen, right? When
Yes.
tyranny becomes law,
Right. Yeah.
come on,
Okay.
finish it.
Well, then you have a dictatorship.
Well, no, when tyranny becomes
Law,
law,
then see. Look at that.
resistance
Okay.
becomes duty.
Oh yes.
Because it's not
Right.
resistance, it's another
Jefferson.
right,
Yes,
right,
yes,
exactly.
Jefferson, right.
Yes. But it is our duty. It is incumbent upon each and every single one of us to resist this, to stand up and take steps against it. And the first and foremost, don't comply. Don't comply, not one bit. Don't wear a mask one single time.
Well, you just said
Right.
you didn't wear a mask and ended up in solitary confinement.
Right, but here I am still fighting. Why?
Yeah.
Because somebody's on my side. Somehow I'm protected. They've
So
come
if
after
I
me
don't
everywhere.
comply, I'll end up in solitary confinement.
But if we-
all end up solitarily confined, what is that going to accomplish?
But I think we'll have the numbers on our side at
Yeah.
that point.
So
Right.
All right, we got 1 minute.
One
Okay.
minute. So in that, all right. I'm going to say to be continued.
To be continued.
All right. But just, I want to throw Canada into this
Okay.
because we're seeing a horrible demonstration of tyranny. There's a report that UN and NATO troops are now patrolling the streets of Ottawa. And
Seizing financial assets, as I did mine.
right.
Yep.
I get mixed reports on that one. Also in Canada. And part of it is that it's the government trying to seize assets. In case of this crypto company, they basically told the Canadian government to go pound sand. You're not going to seize crypto assets, not through us.
Well, isn't that interesting? That makes me think, because whenever something goes viral, they let it go viral. So that makes me think that one of the messaging that they're sending out here, the programming that they're sending out to us is crypto is safe. Put all your money in crypto.
Well,
everybody moved to crypto, right? Which we know that this was part of the New World Order, is to have that.
I think the perception is it's safe up to a point, but then, you don't have any good way to get past that other part where they're just waiting and watching. But quickly, finally, this is our send-off, the report that, okay, the 4 major banks in Canada were, quote, offline, whatever that means. However, now we have reports that there are runs on those banks. Smart move, Trudeau Castro. Okay? Now you're causing a bank run in Canada.
Exactly, to destroy the middle class. That's what it's
Well,
all about.
it's not. Well, there's blowback. Okay? He's not going to get away with it. If you're going to ruin the lives of so many people like that, I think it's only a matter of time before you get removed. So on that happy note, we will pick this up later.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.